Here's my tips and tricks video for what should have been labeled, I believe, Assignment 3. I think I just called it Week 4 exercises, but if I'm correct, this was the third assignment that I gave you, entitled Reading and Writing Data Files, Manipulating Numbers and Vectors. Again, this nominally is due March 11th, which is spring break. You can turn it in on March 18th, which is when we return to class if you prefer. However, you will have to catch up before the end of the semester. Keep that in mind. And I believe we have a quiz on March 25th. So at the beginning here, we're reading and writing data files. I ask you to take all those files that were in the RBook zip and put them in a directory called temp on your C drive. If you're using a Mac, I'm not going to be able to help you too much. You have to put it somewhere where you can access the files directly using read.csv and read.table. So you're going to have to do a little homework with setting the directory into the right place if you're using a Mac. Okay, but anyway, you can check the default directory with this command. Now, read.csv is expecting it to be a CSV file, so this first one's pretty simple. You do want to examine these two functions because they differ in terms of what they think the separator is. Read.csv thinks it's a comma, read.table thinks it's a space. And they also differ in terms of whether they think the headers are there. Headers are the names of the variables at the top of the column. One has I think it's read.csv, I believe, you need to check this, uses headers equals true, and read.table uses headers equals false. But check that, I may be mistaken. Okay, so one is pretty simple and straightforward because you're reading a CSV file with the read.csv function. And, how many rows and columns in the dates object? Well, a couple ways you could do that. You could use DIM, D-I-M. You could query number of rows and number of columns. I think it's n row or n rows, I forget. Okay, what class of object is dates? Well, you could just query it, say class dates. And then this one also, number 2, is pretty straightforward because read.table is expecting the file to be a .txt file. But again, you're going to have to look up read.table and see and look into the cancer.txt file to make sure you have all the settings correct on the arguments. Okay? Now, again, what class is it? You just say class, and how many rows and columns? You use DIM again. Now, this one, number 3, gets a little trickier because the point of this is that read.csv and read.txt really are cousins or siblings. They do the same thing. Their settings are just a little different. So you can read a .txt file with read.csv if you just adjust the settings properly, specifically the separator and the headers. Okay, so you're going to read a .txt file with read.csv and to assign it to this new object comp, you can do that. But again, you've got to be careful about the settings of the arguments in read.csv. Okay, so that goes there. Then what class is comp? Well, you say class or str to tell you. str is probably the better. And then 4, you're reversing again. You're using read.table to read a .csv file. So you have to be real careful about the settings to do this properly. For example, I think PyData does have column headers, and read.table, the headers are false, and you have to set them to true. Okay? So rows and columns, DIM again, R function to complete structure, str will do that. What is the class? Again, class will do that, or even type of, I believe. Okay, so now you're going to write an object in your memory back to the C temp directory, and you're going to name it, give it a different name, and you're going to use this function to do it. So you've got to look up this function to figure out how you call a file, an object that's floating around in your memory, write it to the default directory, and give it a different name. So look that one up. Okay. Does the file PyData CSV look different than PyData CSV? And actually it does. Why? Okay. Manipulating numbers and vectors. Okay, so here, create a numeric vector called W that just has, I think that's 11 real numbers actually. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that's pretty simple. Sort vector, is each value unique? Yes or no? Now I want you to use the indexes or subscripts of W, not the values themselves, to create a new vector G that contains the first 3 elements of W and the 5th, 6th, and 7th elements of W only, without using the values, using the subscripts, manipulating the subscripts, the indexes, and assigning them to G. Then a new vector A that contains the reciprocal of each G vector element. And hints, you can use vector arithmetic. Reciprocal is 1 over the value of something. So you can do it to the whole vector. That's a hint. Okay, create a character vector NMS, short for names, that have these string values, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in the vector NMS. Then you want to assign those string values using the vector itself as the names of the elements in G. Look up the names function. Okay, and then finally trees data. This one's going to be you got to think about this one. How many rows and columns are there in trees? Well, Dime will do that. I want you to use order. We talked about sort and order, right? Sort just sorts the values. Order sorts the indexes in ascending value of the elements. And we did an example of this. Use order, query order. Get the help screen up. And I want you to sort the entire data frame by the values in the height column only. Okay, you don't use sort anywhere in this exercise. And then index the data frame from low to high on just the values in the height column. And then the indexes can be used to sort the entire data frame by just one column or the other. Show how to do that. Okay, thanks a lot.